السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أهلا بكم في قناتكم العيش في الريف الأمريكي. الأمريكان عندهم مثل يقول If life gives you lemon, make lemonade. وإذا الله أعطاك كمثرى نعم، مربى الكمثرى في هذا الموسم، والحمد لله كان محصول الكمثرى من المزرعة وفير والحمد لله. وخليني أقول إنه كان لذيذ جدا وعضوي، لأني ما استخدمت فيه أي مواد كيماوية في زراعته. في حلقات سابقة كنا تكلمنا عن الكمثرى وعملية العناية فيه في مرحلة الإثمار وقطف الثمار وإنضاجها. في هذه الحلقة تعرض لكم هايدي طريقة عمل مربى الكمثرى زي ما يسوونه هنا في الريف الأمريكي في أغلب البيوت. بس قبل ما نبدأ، إذا حبيتوا تتابعون هالقناة ضغطوا على هذا الزر الأحمر والجرس مرة واحدة علشان تجيكم آخر الحلقات. وإذا عجبتكم هذه الحلقة ضغطوا على لايك. بسم الله نبدأ. البداية اختيار الكمثرى المناسب للمربى، تكون ناضجة طرية، كل ما كانت أطرى كان أفضل. المرحلة اللي بعدها الغسيل. وبعدها إزالة القشر والتقطيع. هذه الطريقة اللي أنا استخدمتها شوي كانت تأخذ وقت. ولكن الطريقة اللي سوتها هايدي كانت أكثر سهولة وأسرع.
No, a difference between jam and jelly when you're cooking in terms of the cook. When you're making a jelly, you cook this all the way down, the fruit down to a liquid. Like you may even have to get to the point where you puree it because it's going to be liquid. And you don't do that with jam. Jam, it can be a little chunky. So while we start cooking it, we're going to do some mashing. This is a big pot that we've got water going into. It takes a long time to come to a boil, so I went ahead and started that, and you put the jars with the jam in there to cook after.
من المراحل المهمة أيضا أن احنا نقوم بتعقيم أقراص الغطاء اللي بتحكم الهواء داخل القوارير بوضعها في الماء الحار.
Dad already went through and sanitized these this morning. You can also do this in the dishwasher. Before, I've done this where I put these in the dishwasher and then just dipped them in boiling water. And you don't want to touch the rims after that. Like grab them down here instead of touching up around the top. You don't have to sanitize the rims. I do. This is something we use here, Sure Gel, but this isn't the only way to do jams. Some people use lemon juice. I don't know if it sets as firmly when you use lemon juice. Okay, so this one, if you look at this box, this one is when you're going to use all the sugar in the world, meaning you're going to follow the recipe exactly. I never do that because I think it makes them too sweet with any kind of jam. I never use as much sugar as they tell me to. This is the one I prefer. This one you can make sure you get your firm set on your jam or jelly with less sugar or no sugar. So this one probably has, I'm guessing this, but it probably has a higher pectin content because pectin is what makes this set. And some fruits like apples already have a high pectin content. Lemons do. I'm sure there are other
oranges, I think.
Oranges also. We were going to do this a couple weeks ago and I said, how ripe are the pears? And he's like, they're pretty ripe. And I'm like, no, you want them really ripe. This is actually, I don't know, the way I was taught to do this is the riper the fruit. I mean, you don't want it moldy, but if it's ripe, you want it soft and ripe. That makes the best jam because the flavor of the fruit is stronger then. I have decided to switch this to something that holds a little more. I'm going to go with the plum. We're starting with 8 cups, but when this is cooked down, we're going to be down to 6.5 cups. And it calls for 4.5 cups of sugar. I'm probably going to do about 3 cups of sugar because this fruit is already sweet. So I don't want to kill it with sugar. So I'm going to put 2.5 of those cups. I'm going to mix in the last half cup of sugar, or 3/4 of a cup. Pears are sweet anyway. So you put your Sure Gel in, and then I'm going to stir that up with a spoon. That I'm getting a heavy metal pot because I want one that is not going to scorch my jam. Okay, so put your 1/2 cup water in the pan. Just going to dump it all in there. And before I start cooking it, I'm going to mash it some. A bit smaller chunks here. And with jam, it's not a bad thing if you have some chunks left in it. That's not bad. Jelly's really smooth. Jam doesn't need to be super smooth. It's okay to have some chunks. I've just put this on a medium setting. This is kind of how much mash down I want. I'm going to mash a little bit while I cook a little bit. And then I'm going to add, in a minute, I'm going to add the Sure Gel with the sugar. We've mashed the consistency down a bit while cooking it, and I am going to add in the Sure Gel and sugar mix now. Just stirring it while I add it in. You do this before you bring the fruit to a boil. And the other ingredient we can add in now is a tablespoon or two of butter, which keeps your jam from foaming. See, the fruit's starting to get in smaller chunks now. If you look in the pot, we're just starting to get some bubbling around the edges, and what we're looking for, we need to get it to a full rolling boil, you know, where it's rolling across the whole pot, even while we're still stirring. So it still needs to build a little more heat, and then we've got to do that for a full minute. I usually go 2, and then we'll add our sugar, and then we got to do that again. It's just better to rather have it overcooked than under. Got a nice rolling boil going in our pot now, so we're going to watch the time. We're going to let this happen for at least a full minute minimum. You don't want to do more than 2 either, because you can end up with scalded jam or jam that sets overly hard and turns into candy, honestly. And you do keep stirring the whole time while you're making jam. So now I'm going to add my sugar that I've already measured out, and I'm going to keep stirring while I pour that in. You're going to see in a minute here the color will change on your jam. Okay, so we're reaching our boil again, so I'm going to let this go for 1.5, 2 minutes just to make sure. So this is what a rolling boil looks like. You can see that even though I'm stirring, it's still bubbling all across the pot. And you see that liquid on the outside is less opaque. It's and the more sugar you put in, I'm realizing the more sugar you put in, the more clear liquid you're going to have around your little chunks of fruit. We've got about 30 seconds left here, and it is popping and bubbling. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take the heat off of the fruit. And I'm going to slide my pan with my big scoop over close to my canning jars. Little guys need to go for a swim and get them nicely sanitized. That's hot. So. This is to clean rims if jelly gets spilled on them, because we don't want stuff on the top of the rims, because that could end up being a moldy situation.
نقوم بإخراج العدد الكافي من أقراص الغطاء من الماء بواسطة ملقط المغناطيس. الآن جاء الوقت لوضع المربى في قوارير الحفظ.
I'm going to hold it up a little bit. You can sit it down while you're doing this part, but it kind of cheats it, and you want to, it's very important that you get about 1/8 of an inch from the top. You don't want to fill it more than that or much less than that. If I had any foam, I would simply take a metal spoon and scrape the foam off, but I didn't. Look around the edges of the pot, it's already starting to set. We're going to get a decent set on this. Let me get some lids on these while that heat's still there. Okay. There we go. We'll just sit those on there to hold that heat in. This one is too full. If you come in close on this little jar right here is too full, and you can end up having the lid bubble if you have it too full. So you do not want to overfill any more than you want to underfill. Come right up on the edge of this one. My jam. I'm ready to put some rims on. So we do not want these jars touching in the water, and I may need to add more water to this. So we added quite a bit of warm water to this to make sure that we had a good inch and a half over the top of the things. And now I'm going to put my lid on because we want to get that up to a boil, and we want it to sit in there and boil at least 5 minutes. Some people will leave them in 10, but for a jar that size it's 5 to 7 minutes. And I want to show you something really quick before we go on. These, I don't reuse these. This is not a reusable lid. Once you've used it, like it's usable now because I haven't used this one yet, but once I've used it like this, when it comes off that jar, it's kaput. The rims you can reuse, the jars you can reuse, but these lids, this kind is not reusable. You can buy, certainly online, you can buy whole jar setups that have a rubber rim on them that clamp down, and that whole thing is reusable over and over and over. But these little guys, I don't believe, I know some people do it, I do not recommend ever reusing these, because this thing is so thin you're not going to get a good seal out of it a second time. We had the great canning rush during COVID, and you couldn't find these. A lot of people could get these, but you could not get these. So Dad found something that could make these reusable, and it's this. It's not this part that goes bad, it's this, because it's very, very thin. So you would lay this in there, and it makes it reusable. It is a reusable rubber ring.
بعد عملية الغليان نقوم برفع القوارير من القدر.
We just heard one. You're going to start to hear these things popping.
هذا الصوت اللي سمعتوه مهم لأنه يعني أن القارورة محكمة الغلق والهواء محكوم في الداخل، وهذا مهم للمحافظة على المربى في الداخل من الخراب وهو في الجو العادي. وهذه الطريقة لا تحتاج إلى تبريد تماما مثل بقية المعلبات والمربيات في الأسواق، وعندما نفتحها ينطلق الهواء من داخل القارورة ونسمع الصوت مرة ثانية. ومعنى هذا إن المربى لازم يحفظ في الثلاجة.
These little thin lids that we put on are sealing down as they cool down just enough, and you're going to hear a pop. And if you don't hear a jar pop, you need to boil it again.
It will take some time.
Yeah. Some of them do, but a couple of them have popped already. So after these cool and the popping happens, we will label them with the date what it is and the date, so we know how long they've been in storage.
هذه النتائج اللي حصلنا عليها من هالطبخة. طبعا بعد ما خلصنا كتبنا عليها ويش فيها، ويش نوعية الجام والتاريخ. طبعا هذا مهم جدا علشان نعرف لما نخزنها كم المدة اللي قضتها في التخزين. إضافة إلى ذلك مفروض أنها تكون في داخل مكان مظلم قدر المستطاع علشان ما يتغير لونها. طعم ما بيختلف طبعا. في طبعا هذا الرنج اللي فوق مفروض ان يعني نخليه ما هو تايت، خليه شويه لوس علشان لما نبغى نفتح ما يكون في صعوبه مع الوقت. طبعا النتيجه كانت جدا جدا جيده، لان شوف السائل تماسك تماما داخل. طبعا في البيوت عادة يعني تتم العملية هذه على عدة مراحل وعدة أنواع من الفواكه. هنا عندنا في البيت عادة هذه هي اللي متخصصة في الجامات، فلذلك فيه عدة أنواع من المربى هي تسوي. طبعا أنا تخصصي في الطماط، فلذلك عادة أعلب طماط. طبعا في ملاحظة مهمة هنا، إن هذا مثلا من 2019، إحنا في 21، في واحد منهم أعتقد إنه 2018. السبب إنه ليش الأشياء هذه تظل فترة طويلة؟ أولا ما فيها أي مواد حافظة. الشيء الوحيد اللي موجود فيها بكتين والسكر والفاكهة نفسه، تعتمد على عملية ضغط الهواء علشان ما يتسلل هواء إلى الداخل. هذا كل اللي موجود، فلذلك الطعم يكون جدا كويس، أفضل مما هو موجود في المعلبات اللي تباع في المحلات. ثانيا تدوم أطول بالرغم أن هذه فيها مواد حافظة أيضا ضارة بالصحة. أرجو أنكم استمتعتوا بحلقتنا اليوم، لا تنسونا من الدعاء، ولا تنسوا إذا حبيتوا تشاركوا معنا، اشتركوا في القناة، اعطونا لايك، إن شاء الله نكون تحت حسن ظنكم. إلى اللقاء في حلقة قادمة من قناتكم العيش في الريف الأمريكي، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. حلقتنا اليوم حتكون عن المطبخ، فلذلك استعدوا، كل واحد يربط بطنه، توكل على الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أهلا بكم في قناتكم العيش في قناتكم